Welcome to Wisdom for the Wilderness, a weekly podcast by the pastors of Overland Church, where we talk about the Bible, theology, and practical things of life. And today, we're going to answer a question from a listener. And I'm going to read to you the beginning of their question. And it's this: how should Christian parents who are committed to the discipleship of their children think through allowing them to play video games?
Yeah.
So it's a great question, and they go on in their description. They ask some particular things, some nuance. They're really thinking deeply about it.
Yeah.
And so this is, I think, an excellent question,
Right.
and one that really deserves some thought and some weightiness to it.
And video games aren't what they were in our childhood. What was your first video game console?
Josh,
You never
had
one?
a real video game console. I had a Game Boy.
Okay, Game Boy.
So, but I never had one at a TV. I had a
Yeah.
Game Boy. If you've kind of heard my testimony, you know that the summer between 8th and 9th grade, I was in a car wreck and broke my back.
Uh-huh.
And that summer, when I just had nothing to do and 4 channels on the TV, my brother brought over, I think, the second Nintendo, maybe like the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I had one game, which is Mortal Kombat, and I played it all summer until I beat it.
Yeah.
And then I never played it again. So,
Yeah.
as we dive into this, I'll just put my cards on the table. I don't like video games.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
So I don't play them.
Yeah.
Horrible at them. I've, as growing up, I had like, I could play my Game Boy, or I could go out and ride my motorcycle in the country.
Right.
I chose my motorcycle every time. I could play my Game Boy, or I could go hunting.
Yeah.
I chose hunting, right?
Yeah.
I could play the Game Boy, I could go fishing. I chose fishing. So there's my cards on the table.
Right.
So what about you?
I had one of the original Nintendos, and you'll think this is funny. The primary game I played on that was the Bible Explorer game.
Didn't even know there was such a
Yes,
thing.
like you had to get Moses through the wilderness and different things. And then later I had a Nintendo 64, but I think that was pretty much the extent of it. And I was never someone who really got sucked into video games. It wasn't like my life or anything like that.
So as we work through this today, you and I are going to have to work to be charitable.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll do that. And I really do want to think through this. Obviously, you date us a little bit there. We're in our 40s. You're not 40 yet, are you?
I will be
soon.
Yeah.
So that's our age. But man, the world is so much different today. There's virtual reality.
Yeah.
So many different ways you can play online with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And
even gambling involved in a lot of it.
Right. And it's targeted, from what I've read, that there's a lot of games where, ads pop up or people, and you can play with people all over the world. So let's first just start off with a biblical framework. Like in something like a video game, there's no Bible verse that we can turn to and say, thou shalt not play X amount of video games. There's certain types of video games, right?
Yeah.
So this is where, as Christians, we really examine the Scripture carefully, and we apply the teaching of Scripture in a way that informs our thoughts on it.
That's right.
There's not a clarity here. It's informing our thoughts.
And it's not about the actual action as much as the results or consequences of the action. So, how is this influencing us? What is it kind of bringing up in our lives? What is it breeding in our lives?
Right.
And so that's the issue.
Which the person in the writing of their question, said Christian parents that want to disciple think deeply about discipleship with their kids, and that really is the first thing that we need to acknowledge. Our job as parents is to make our children into followers of Christ.
That's right.
Right? We want to see our children love the Lord and have affections for the things of the Lord, and not just affections for the things of the world. So he really has that framework in which he's thinking about this question. Right. play your kids and the video games that the systems and the games that you buy them
Yeah.
and place in front of them are part of their discipleship, whether it's a stumbling block of their discipleship
Right.
or something that's going to help them.
Yes.
So there's some real things that we have to think about there in discipleship. Stewardship of time.
Yeah.
Right. How they're using their time. How much time are they spending doing it? What in certain seasons? I think it changes by season of how much time. We've
Right.
got a lot of kids on winter break, and there's going to be some kids spend more time than they would during the school week. And is that
Yeah.
okay? Is it just going to rot their brain or whatnot?
Yeah, and what is that
Um,
activity replacing that you'd rather see your kids doing? That's another, question
Right.
to
Right.
think about as a parent.
Yeah. I brought some of this up to my kids, and one of my kids plays very little video games and has very little interest in playing
Yeah.
video games. And if he it's racing. He wants to, race. And as he's thinking through it, and he did a great job framing, as he and I had this discussion about it, framing out things about discipleship and what's it pulling your affections towards.
Yeah.
But he said, is there a difference? He asked the question, is there a difference in somebody who's reading and they're reading some sort of fantasy fiction? Is there a difference in that and playing video games? It's still,
Yeah.
and that's a great
That is
question.
a good question.
And let's just acknowledge, like, there are a lot of things that I do, that you do, that we all do, that aren't just full on out for the glory of
Right.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay. It's part.
Yeah.
It's
No,
part of life.
we
but
need things that help us relax and rest, but they also have to be things that in some way add value to our lives.
Right.
And so
yeah, and so going back to his question of reading,
yeah.
not all reading is adding value
Right.
to your life.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's probably, a lot of teenagers that don't struggle with video games and playing that are reading things that also
Yeah.
don't add any value and may hurt them.
A lot of women.
A lot of women, yeah, right. On the women's side, it's smut, whatever you would
Yeah.
call it, like
Yes.
romance novels that aren't good.
That's
that,
right.
that they read. So,
Different topic.
right.
For another day.
Different topic, but still it helps us go, okay, this isn't just in one category.
Yeah.
Answering this question is going to help us in multiple categories. And so along that same line of thinking, the things that shape our affections and shape our loves, those are things that we have to guard and pay attention to.
Yeah.
So, and I think video games do that. I think they can shape our affections. They can shape our imagination. I believe that in the playing of games, part of it rewires your brain.
Yeah.
And the fast paced and the neuroplasticity of your brain and how it's forming those grooves in your brain to think a certain way. So again, interactive media like that forms us different than passive media,
Right.
where we're watching it versus playing and interacting in it. So I think the first thing I would say here is that we just have to realize video games and people who play them, it is forming them.
Yes.
And it is shaping them.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's doing it not just in terms of content. So I think you just kind of touched on that. So I mean, there's some video games I think every Christian parent would be like, absolutely not. There's forms of pornography and types of immorality that are promoted in these games, and those should be off bounds from Christian kids and Christian homes. But even some games, I don't know, say Mario Kart or something that is completely innocent, even those things, how is that shaping me? How is that, bringing up things like my temper? And it differs from kid to kid, right?
Right.
So, it's more than just the content in the game. It's also the influence of the game on me as a person.
Right. Games in general, like if you were to go back and take to somebody who'd never seen TV before and
Yeah.
put that many images for their brain to process
Right.
in front of them, oh man, it would give them a headache. It would hurt them.
Yeah.
They would have to turn their eyes away from it.
Yep.
But we're trained to do it, which means it's made it where sitting still, not doing anything,
Yep.
often reading or focusing becomes hard because of the
Yes.
influence of seeing so many images flash
Yeah.
before our eyes and interact with it. So
Yeah.
there very much is a physical aspect of the world we live in. And to be careful here, it's not just video games,
Right.
Instagram, the reels, the
Yeah.
TikToks, all of those things are creating some of the same issues when it comes
Yeah.
to focus.
Just that constant little, hit to the pleasure center,
Right. The dopamine
that,
hits.
reading and sitting still and meditating on things just can't compete with.
Right.
And so you're constantly going to be, drawn away from things that add greater value to your life towards these things that are momentary and fleeting.
Right.
And as the platforms have improved, essentially over our lifetime, over the last
Right.
40, 50 years, and the graphics chips have gotten better and better, then that dopamine hit just becomes more and more and more intense.
Right.
Whereas, when you were looking at your Game Boy, you weren't having the same level of physical chemical reaction that somebody playing whatever the system is, PS22 or
Right.
whatever's
Whatever it
out
is.
now, is experiencing.
Right. So there's something to consider. You brought up there's some games that Christian parents would say they just shouldn't play, and that really brings up the idea that yeah, they're not all games have the same moral weight to them.
Right.
And I can't go into a list of, hey, these are bad games because I don't know them. But one I am aware of back in the day that I'm in student
Back in
ministry.
the day when you were a
No, student
youth
was
pastor.
when I was a youth pastor, yeah. And so there were kids playing Grand Theft Auto,
Yeah.
and I was shocked to find out in that game of Grand Theft Auto, it wasn't just about stealing cars. You could buy a prostitute,
Yeah.
and instead of paying that prostitute, you could like shoot her in the head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how
And,
morally bankrupt human
yeah.
like human depravity on display. Like no Christian should be
Yeah.
playing
Yeah,
that
I mean
kind of
that
game.
normalizes things that you don't want normalized in your kid's life. And I know back in that same time period there was questions about the connection between games like that and school shootings, and we can't draw a straight line, but I mean there is some sort
There's
of
plenty of correlation,
relationship.
right?
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of things within that conversation of bullying or single parent homes or
Yeah.
abuse that there are similarities in a lot of those cases, not necessarily one to one
Right.
correlation.
And a lot of them go together. When
Right?
you're in a single parent home, you're more likely to be, babysat by the video games,
Right. And if you only interact online and you come to school and you seem to be weird and you get picked on, and there's 100 reasons someone
Yeah.
could get picked on. So
Yep.
I don't think there's a direct correlation, but I think there probably is in some cases a normalizing of violence
Yeah.
that uh, plays out in real life, and that also would come in the shows we watch and those things.
Right.
So again, as a parent discipling their child, I just say like we have to be careful and err on the side of like, hey, we're not going to watch that. That's
Yeah.
not profitable
Yeah.
in your formation as a disciple to play that game. Like my kids in our home, we delayed bringing video games into our home for a long time. We did it. We've monitored it. We don't have. There's no level of like legalism
Yeah.
in our home on like this is the number of hours a week or whatever. But we just I always err on the side of like, hey, that's enough time. Get off. Let's go and interact. Come,
Yeah.
let's do this.
Yeah.
And then it's either sports games or racing games
Yeah.
for us. And
Yeah.
so, man, there's a lot of Madden, NBA games, 2K, maybe some college 26 or something
Yeah.
like that. But we're not going to spend time on violent games.
Yeah.
I think another thing that comes into the equation. You brought up gambling earlier, and I think that could be a danger in some sports games like that. My kids, our kids should know the dangers of gambling, and we should steer them away from it.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they go off to college, you're not going to control what your kids are doing, but they need to logically
Yeah.
be able to connect the dots of, if I do this, if I do this, if I
Yep.
do this, I could end up here.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. In our house, we don't have any like modern gaming system, but we do have a Super Nintendo. They make them now. You don't have the cartridges. Remember, you used to have
Yeah.
to blow on the
Yeah.
cartridges. You don't have the cartridges. They make them now with in the memory. It has 15 games or something like that from the original Super Nintendo, and we don't have like a specific time limit either. But it is kind of like it stays in our room, and they have to ask for it, and then we get it back, and so there's a little more control over it. And we went that direction because some of our kids struggle with ADHD, and kids with ADHD have a lot harder time limiting themselves on video games, and also the higher quality graphics that are in modern video games has a much higher effect on kids with ADHD.
Yeah.
And so that's why we went in that direction. And would my kids really like whatever the new Sega, or I guess Sega, does Sega even exist anymore?
I don't
know.
think so, Josh.
Yeah. But then the other thing we wanted was, we did not want a device that was connected to the internet,
Right.
because anybody can get to your kids through the internet.
Right. So let's dive in on that, because
Yeah.
to me, that's a no-go.
Yeah.
Multiple player environments introduce people you would not want your kids around,
Right.
to be in the room with them.
Yes. Yes.
And everything that comes along with that. It's not just, best case scenario is they hear cussing and crass language. Worst case scenario is they develop a relationship with somebody online who then tries to meet them in person one
Right.
day.
Yeah.
Right. And it leads to a disastrous thing. Right.
Yeah.
And trying to be sensitive here, but things like that happen.
Yeah. And are happening increasingly, and we think of girls, but it's becoming even worse with boys, where they are connected through platforms like this. They're convinced to send some sort of picture to this person.
Right.
And
then
this person's not a real person. Then they demand cash.
Right.
And, boys are committing suicide and everything because they got themselves into something they shouldn't get into.
So that's maybe a topic for another day, but sextortion.
Yeah.
And I think I read the other day that it's coming up on 80 teenagers in the U.S. that have committed suicide this year because of that very thing.
There are whole data centers in India and China right now that are doing this to American children.
Right.
I mean, it's like a corporation that's doing it. It's not just random people that are preying on our kids.
So the online aspect to me is an absolute no-go. And if they say, well, if you can make the argument they're playing from friends from school or whatever else.
Yeah.
If they're playing with them, they can play with anybody else. And so to me, that's a no-go for the safety of my children. I'm not gonna do it. I think also, as we weigh in on the dangers of it, and I do think there's a piece to where the violence aspect of it, and the closer it is to looking like you're actually shooting or killing somebody, the more it does desensitize you to. So again, I don't want to be legalistic here, but I just shy away from them. I move that way. This person asked the question of even if it's in a scenario, like maybe it's a World War II game and it's just war.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't want to be legalistic about it either. And one of the games I enjoyed as a kid was 007 GoldenEye,
Yeah,
and that was a fun game. But at the same time, you were killing people. They were supposedly the bad guys. They were the commies, you know. So, but at the same time, I just wonder there's a balance to be had. I think that we live in a culture where guns have become so seen as a great evil that we have removed any sort of respect for guns and respect for maybe the military as a
right,
career path from life, that a lot of our kids wouldn't even ever consider that as something honorable to pursue. But at the same time, I don't know that video games are necessarily the correction for that, because it really doesn't make it real. It makes it a game. And I would hate for, let's say a kid never goes and kills people at their school, which would be horrible. I mean, but imagine they go into the army with this idea that it's like a video game,
right.
and then they come into the reality that no, this is actually life and
This is
death.
right,
I'd much rather my kids learn how to shoot guns responsibly, with me, and do target practice, that kind of thing, and read books that are realistic to those time periods in history, and relive that history through literature and through that kind of thing, rather than video games. And the same thing can be said to a degree with movies, like Saving Private Ryan. That came out when we were younger,
right,
and there was a big debate about that. Today, it seems pretty calm, like compared to the way movies are produced. But back then, that D-Day beach scene was very realistic. And the question is it good for us to watch that? And I
right,
think that's a good question.
right, right. That's a fair question.
Yeah.
So, not trying to come across legalistic, but I just would steer my kids away from it, and
Yeah.
that's a no for me. There's a whole nother piece of the question that we could talk about in this podcast about adults and video games. Probably ought to be a part two,
Yeah.
because there's a whole nother conversation with adults and
Uh-huh.
video games.
College
Uh,
students,
right,
watch out. It's coming for
right,
you.
right. We part two, here it comes, but we're answering this question about children.
Yeah.
So, uh, kind of jumping back in on the discipleship train of thought. One of the thoughts that I th- we have to address is like age.
Yeah.
What is age appropriate? Is there a level where age can handle it? And I think that's a maturity question for our
Right.
kids.
Right.
And I test my kids sometimes. I'll do things like, "Hey, cut that off and come upstairs," and I want to see their response.
Yeah.
And if the response is like to get mad about it or angry about it, or um, to talk back to me, like, okay, we're this is going to go away for a
Yeah.
little bit until you can mature, and
Yep.
using those things just to see where their heart is, to
Mm.
take the temperature of their heart, and give me a sassy response and you will regret it,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you've got to learn, you've got to still remember,
Yeah.
I am your father.
And no matter how old you are, when you have those sassy, angry responses when something you love is taken away, that's like
It's a great
crystal clear. That's an idol in your
right.
life.
Yep.
And as parents, one of the things we have to do is lovingly remove idols from our kids' lives when we see them developing. Um, for one thing, just to help them see,
Yeah.
and I think I've had instances like that, not with video games, but other things. Where the kids, maybe a week or two later without the thing, they realize, oh gosh, that had taken over
Right.
a ton of my attention, a ton of my affections, and I actually feel better with it out of my life than in.
Right.
So, that's a part of our
Right.
responsibility, is
And
identifying those
and
things.
as parents, our job isn't to make our kids happy. Our job isn't to make our kids be our best friend. Our
Yeah.
job isn't to make our kids like us. And so you're going to have to tell your kids no.
Yes.
You're going to make your kids mad.
Yep.
Um, it's part of parenting.
Yeah. And you can't can't care at all if they come and say, you know what, Bobby and Susie get to play video games. Why can't I play video games? That should have zero influence
Right.
on you as a parent.
Right. Right. The peer pressure part of it. And, we've said before on this podcast that parenting is the most competitive sport in the world.
Yeah.
And that parents they do all these things by comparing themselves to other parents.
Yeah.
And that's not helpful. And
Right.
so what someone else is deciding for their children, though it can be helpful to me if they've helped, like I think this question is very helpful. This person's thought through it and processed it. That's a very helpful thing. I think it's helpful when parents in the church are kind of on the same page,
Right.
or at least the parents that you're kind of raising your kids
Yeah.
alongside of, when these conversations, video games,
Phone.
phones, dating,
Yeah.
like it's great that we're all on the, would be all on the same page,
Yeah.
but we're never going to be all exactly
Right.
on the same page. And I mean, I even have different standards for my own kids and their own discipleship.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
one kid that I just don't even have to bring that. This is not a conversation that has ever have to have. And if he finishes school and he comes home and he goes and jumps on a game, like I could care less.
Yeah. Yep.
Not even going to think about it.
Yep.
The other one would need to ask,
Uh-huh.
right? Because
he doesn't have the self-control with that
particular
thing.
thing,
Yep.
that particular
Yep.
thing, right? Another scenario, it's going to be different because I
Right.
have two different kids, and
Yes.
it's not the same thing across the board.
Yes.
And generally speaking, this just isn't going to be a struggle in my family. So
Yeah.
the comparison piece, I think you have to do what you believe is right. It is helpful when we as parents lock arms. It does make
Yeah.
things easier. But what they say, if they throw up, well, Bobby gets to play this much.
Yeah.
Great for Bobby.
Great for Bobby.
I'm not Bobby's dad.
That's right.
And that's the reality
right.
of it.
Yeah.
I think as I think about my kids and I think about getting ready to send them out into the world,
Mm.
like when man, am I coming up on it fast? You're coming up on
Yes.
it fast. Are they going to be more prepared for life and their God-given purpose because of video games or not?
Yeah. Yeah. Does it add any value
Right.
to them as a person? Or do
And-
I think they would look back and say, you know what? I'm kind of glad my parents didn't let me have video games.
I think in the long run, they will profit from having it limited.
Yeah.
And I think you have to, at the same time, ask the question, then what can I do? What can I put in their lives to help disciple them so that they do have things going in the real world?
Yeah.
For me, I made a decision to buy motorcycles for my boys. Now that neither one of them have motorcycles, by the way, we've moved out of that season.
Yeah.
But I thought of that season like, I'm going to teach them to be brave.
Yeah.
Adventurous. I'm going to teach them a skill that they can do a long time in life. We're going to see some beautiful country. We're going to do hard things together and sweat together.
Yep.
You're going to have to work on them. You're going to have to learn how to turn a wrench and
Yep.
Change oil and spare tires. And I just thought there's a lot to be profited out of that. And I think both of my boys would look back on it and tell you now, we're really glad we did that in that season. It was really a lot of fun. It was worth it. Sports.
Yeah.
That they're actually playing. I think there's a lot, as long as it doesn't become an idol, there's a lot to learn. Like I can go through, we hunt. I think there's a lot of life lessons we learn in hunting.
Yeah.
Name the thing. I just don't know in video games how much you're going to look back and go, I'm really good at this because of that.
Yeah.
And there's probably some level. Some programmers or there's probably some level, but I just don't think it's
some computer science major at CSU is going to call us and be like, well, actually,
right.
Don't actually us. We're going to go with this.
We understand that there would be some issues, but generally speaking, I don't know that most kids are gonna be better off for it.
That's right.
You are. Our job is making children that are disciples. Man, the first thing that we want to think about is their love for the Lord. So let me just throw this out there. Here's a really basic thing. If your kid's a teenager and they're a good reader, I would say I would make sure that they've read their Bible and done their quiet time before you give them game time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that's something that I often do. I'll get asked a question. I went, well, what'd you read in the Bible today?
Yeah.
And then I'll say, go read a few chapters and tell me about it, and then let's talk.
Right.
And they'll come back, and this happened just the other day. They said, one of them said, I read Matthew 5, 6, and 7. I said, oh, really? Tell me about it. Because that was an easy one, right? Like
Yeah.
I knew, and they told me about it. They nailed it, and I was like, yeah, you can go play for a little bit.
Uh-huh.
30 minutes later, dinner time came, called them up, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think those are good things to do as
Right.
parents.
Yep.
Yeah. I just want to bring this back around in that rules without relationships brings rebellion. I think I've said that before. Chuck Henderson, mutual friend of ours, told me that, said that. It's one of the parenting things. So it's not just about the rule. It's got to be about the why. There's got to be relationship. There's got to be understanding. Take the time and explain those things to your kids. Have this conversation with your kids. Don't just lay down the law, but have the conversation with your kid.
Right.
Of, hey, this is why other kids maybe staying up all night.
Yeah.
Playing video games. You're not. You're going to bed at 9:30.
Yep.
Because you live in my house.
Yeah.
And we go to bed at 9:30.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And it's another kind of related to that. It could be in some instances an opportunity to let them have a little leash and make a mistake, then draw them back in and review what they did. So I mean that happens with our gaming system. Sometimes we'll see just how long will he go.
Right.
And then we'll let him, and then we'll draw him in and we'll talk about, hey, do you think that was really the best use of your time, and use that as a teaching moment? Yeah. So, having those opportunities within safety builds the relationship and helps them understand the why behind the rules as well.
Yeah. Well, Josh, great conversation today. Part 2 incoming in a few weeks.
Okay.
Give us 4 or 5 weeks, and let's circle back and let's talk about adults and video games.
Yes.
And I think that's a great conversation to have. So, in closing today, you have any words of wisdom for us?
I mean, this has all been great, but read. Get your kids to read. That would be my number one priority, and not just the Bible, but reading fiction and stuff, because that improves your ability to read the Bible. And so fill your house with books, and it's a lot cheaper than filling your house with gaming systems and games. So
I think our budget might say otherwise.
Hey, but you can buy a lot of books at Goodwill and Art for $1 or $2. So
man, I don't know. We're my wife's taking seminary classes. There's a lot of books lately.
Yes, well, you can't find those at Goodwill, but you can
find those.
You
at
can
Goodwill.
find some stuff your kids will enjoy.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And reading is such an important skill.
Yeah.
And something that we need to be able to do. And as Christians, we cannot lose the ability to read. That's really good. Mine's going to be play some video games with your kids. And man, I've done this just a handful of times. I don't do it. Again, I don't enjoy video games.
Yeah.
Jennifer's done it a few times. Sometimes when we've noticed that our kids are using video games for an escape, like something has happened and they want to take their minds off of it, rather than fussing at them.
Yeah.
They just go down and say, hey, I want to play you in whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll let them just beat the mess out of me, but I'll talk.
Yeah. Do you let them, or they actually just beat
there's
the
no
mess out of you?
No, I mean, I couldn't.
You couldn't do it.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear.
Zero chance that I could beat anybody in a video game.
Yes.
I can't even turn the thing on.
Yeah.
So, but it can be a good way to connect and de-escalate things, and so do it. Connect relationally with your kids. That's the real point of wisdom here.
That's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for Wisdom for the Wilderness. as always, if you have questions, we'd love to answer your questions. Just email us at wisdom@overlandchurch.org or come up and just talk to us about it. We'd love to answer your questions. Found this helpful, be sure to share it with friends. And until next time, God bless.